the Ask Ken show. And this is an amazing event where once a month, every month, what do? I live channel any spiritual questions. So, yes, this is the Ask Ken show. For those of you who don't know me, I teach channeling for a living. So yes, that's what I do is I actually teach people how to channel, and I have full certification workshops. You can visit my website channelinginc.com. You can see it there, and just go to my website, say hi. That's where you can look at all my different spiritual online events. I have things like the Ascension Group Healing. That's once a month where I heal whole entire groups at the same time, which is so cool, so fun. And I also do spiritual upgrades during those Ascension Group Healings. So, welcome to the Ask Ken show. If you have any questions, so first of all, if you're watching right now, just say hi. If you say hi, I will give you a shout out, mention where you're from as well. And we have Mark Leaders, and he is from, I believe, the Edmonton region in Canada, Edmonton, Alberta. Jason Matthews, and just make sure you mention where you're from. Calgary, awesome, awesome. And Shelly is tuning in. Welcome, welcome. If you're just tuning in to the Ask Ken show, make sure you say hi so I can give you a shout out. Heather Matthews from Calgary as well. Yeah, near Edmonton. I think it's Sherwood Park, if I'm not correct. I actually lived in Edmonton for 13 years. Great place. And Shelly is from Lethbridge. Welcome, Shelly. So ask your spiritual questions. What do you want to know? And Kathy's also from Lethbridge. Oh, cool. Welcome, Kathy. What do you want to know? So I'm not doing readings. This is not a readings type of event. I do other events that feature that kind of sessions and that kind of topics. But this is more like, what do you want to know about spirituality? What are those like underlying questions? And I'm not just going to make it up. I'm actually going to check and channel the questions live. That's why it's called the Ask Ken show, because this gives like the public, people from all over the world that I've been training for 20 years now. And sometimes they just have some questions. They want to know like different kind of spiritual questions. They want some validation, verification, confirmation, or they just want some insights or in-depth knowledge about different kinds of not like questions that they want to ask. They want to know like about basically anything spiritual. You could also ask questions about myself. I don't mind. That's kind of, I'm pretty open book. Anyone who knows me, there's not much that I hide. I pretty much share it all. I had someone yesterday, a client. He's a pretty high profile person that he's been around for a while, and he asked me. He's like, how do you like come out of the closet? Like I want to tell people about this stuff because I was teaching him how to channel, and he was like really loving it, but he was like kind of concerned about mentioning about, oh, I do channeling, like if people what people are going to think about him. And it's a valid question. I had those fears 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and I was hesitant. It didn't happen for me overnight. Like basically I had to build up the courage. And you know I realize now, like looking back, two things is that one is that those fears that I thought I had about what people would think, and the people, especially those people close to me, that, they would make fun of me, or they would put me down, or they would like, bash me and say like, what's the matter with you? You've gone crazy. Or like, all those fears, not one happened like at all. Like all those people that I thought would, like, don't get me wrong, some strangers once in a while think I'm full of it or whatever. That's fine. That doesn't bother me. But it was more the people that are close to me that I was mostly concerned about. And those were the people that I had the biggest hangups about. But then the other thing that I realized, and you ready for this, is that because I did come out of the closet, because I did tell people what I do channeling full time for a living, and I have it on all my social media profiles. I tell people in public, I don't care. Like I've just said, this is what I do. And if they want to believe it, great. If they don't want to believe it, if they want to dismiss it or make fun of it, so what? I don't care. But the people that want to find me and that need to find me will find me because I put myself out there. I make myself public. And I just, and because of that, I've been able to help tens of thousands of people over the years learn how to channel through my certification programs and all that kind of cool stuff. So what kind of questions would you like to know about spirituality? So first of all, if you're just tuning in, please make sure you mention your name and where you're from so I can give you a shout out and say hi to you. And Kathy has a question about, is it possible to receive a download when channeling? Are they the same? So the question is it possible to receive a download when channeling? Are they the same? I'm going to try to interpret this question the best I can, because it's not just a yes or a no. Like there's in channeling, the fundamentals of channeling is always know where you're getting the information from. This is my channeling level 2 workshop. So I have a bunch of workshops that I teach. They're full certification workshops. Each one comes with a 50-page manual. It's the formal training. You get a certificate at the end of it. And in my Channeling 2 workshop, I really emphasize, where are you getting the information from? Like level 1, I teach you how to channel yourself and all that other stuff. So it's not as critical. But when we get to level 2, then it's and level 3 and so on, you need to always know the source of the information, because without it, you don't know if you're channeling something that's of the light or not of the light. And it could really mess you up and really do, like it's done that to me back in my early days. Those of you who know my story, I've gone through, major struggles where I had these things talking to me. I was just naive. I didn't know any better. It's not that it was right or wrong, good or bad. So some people say, oh, don't open yourself up to channeling, because you're going to open yourself up to things you shouldn't. Guess what? You're already channeling. Guess what? Everybody's already channeling. We do it whether we know it or not. The difference is that some people, what they do is they either take a course from somebody who maybe knows what they're doing but maybe doesn't, and then they just teach them, oh, you channel this, you channel that, or just open yourself up to all these things. And that can be dangerous. I agree, it can be. So that's why what I do is I teach people how to make sure they can identify what they're channeling, and then they make sure they're only working and operating in the light. Hence the name light worker. You're only working in the light. Very important. I want all my students to make sure that they're channeling safely and properly things only of the light. So is the download and is channeling the same thing? The answer is, for the most part, yes, it is. But the difference is, sometimes people can actually, it's their own thoughts and they're not channeling at all. So it's their own psyche, their own mind, and it's coming just from themselves and all that. But it can also come from different aspects of themselves. So I teach my students how to channel essential components of themselves, like their soul. Like, how do you channel your soul? What does it feel like? How do you know what it is? What's the characteristics of it? So you know for sure if you're channeling your soul. And then I also teach people how to channel their higher self. How do you know it's your higher self? What are the characteristics? What are the attributes? How do you know for sure you're channeling your higher self? And then, are you channeling your spirit guides? And if you're channeling your spirit guides, which spirit guide are you channeling? So that you could tell. And then what I do is I take my students through very specific exercises and activities, either through my workshops or one-on-one, where I help them to discern the difference. Is this coming from your spirit guide? Is this coming from you? Or is this your spirit guide? Or is this from you? And I can teach them very specific techniques on how to discern the difference. And then with practice over time, you can actually discern the difference between whether it's coming from you or your spirit guides. And very important to know the difference. So you're not just making it up and thinking that you're channeling, and you're not really not. You're just making stuff up. And then as we get to higher levels, then I teach my students how to channel like loved ones, spirit guide readings, ancestral readings, past life readings, how to channel sprites, fairies, dragons, crystal divas, pixies, angels, you name it, all sorts of really amazing things, animal communication, and on and on and on. Again, why? With the end goal in mind. Always know who you're channeling. So if you're kind of winging it and you're not sure, like, it can be dangerous. I don't want people to think fearfully, like, because that's the last thing I want. In the end of level 2, I say, now that I've taught you all this, you never need to be afraid again. You are empowered. I've just taught you how to channel all these different things and how to know what you're channeling and make sure you're always operating in the light. And if something's not of the light, what to do with it. I'll teach you all that. But you are empowered now. Never live in fear. You don't have to worry about going out and protecting yourself, or going to this event and protecting yourself, or go to the mall and protecting yourself. No. I want my students to get away from that. You are empowered. You're strong. You're powerful. And you, like, I never worry about me going out somewhere and protect myself beforehand. I don't need to. if something, the rare occasion, once, twice a year, maybe 3, 4 times a year, that's it. If the odd time something does come of the light that's not of the light, I know what to do with it. I know how to identify it, and I deal with it promptly, and then I continue on. No big deal. But I'm not always living in fear, worried about this stuff. I just live my life and rock my life. So great question. I hope that that answers your question, Kathy. If you have any questions, so if you're watching, please say hi, give a shout out so I can give you a shout out. So where you're from, your name and where you're from, and any questions that you have about spirituality. Welcome to the Ask Ken Show. So the next question is Grace is saying hi from Perth, Australia. Yeah, and she's just giving me a thank you for how much I've helped her, and she's taken my channeling workshops, and it's lovely working with you, Grace. So amazing. If people think you're full of it, so Jason Matthews mentioned people think I'm full of it too. The reason why I build community, so you can check out on Facebook. I have I have a Facebook group called Spirituality is Fun. So my slogan is spirituality is meant to be fun. And the reason why I have this as my slogan is because too many people take spirituality way too serious. I'm like, really, people? Come on. Like, don't get me wrong. There's a time and place where, spirituality is serious, and you need to deal with like childhood traumas, past life stuff, unhealthy behaviors, addictions, things like that. I get that, right? But in general, can you make spirituality fun? So that's the name of my Facebook group, Spirituality is Fun. And then once you take a channeling workshop with me, a full certification workshop, then you can now join one of my Facebook groups. It's a private group, and that's a group where it's a big community of people from all around the world. It's a safe place. People have been trained properly through my channeling workshops. So if you ask any of these kind of spiritual questions, you can ask these questions, and it's going to come from people that actually know what they're doing. They're able to channel, and they're not just going to make up some weird theory and stuff like that, or think you're crazy because you're not. You might be weird like me. Haha. Welcome all you weirdos. If you're a weirdo, send a message and say I'm a weirdo, and be proud of it and honor it. I was always that black sheep growing up as a child, and now I gather all the black sheeps together, and I'm like, let's be weird together. Let's do channeling together and spirituality together, and it's just so fun. I love it. Like, I love spirituality, and that's why I build community, and I have been for 20 years, is because I used to started out doing it all alone, and it was very, very, very difficult. So please join my community. You can also go to my website, channelinginc.com. And if you register for an event, there's community newsletters and things like that. So, yeah, Heather Matthews is like, I'm honored to be a weirdo. Woo woo. Mark Leaders as well. Yeah. Okay, so the Ask Show is made up of your questions. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. Corey Lynn is calling in from Calgary, and she's owning her weirdness. Woo woo! I love it. Okay, when I observe my spirit guides, I observe them as orbs. How come? So the question is, sometimes what will happen is we can communicate with our spirit guides through different ways, different methods, what are called clairs, like clairabilities, clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairalliance, clairgustance, that's clairtasting. Clairalliance is like smelling, clairsentient, which is feeling, and then also claircognizant and all that. So there's a bunch of different clairs that we can communicate with our spirit guides. Sometimes people will observe their spirit guides as orbs. Orbs are their true essence of who they are. So let's just bring it back to us. When we die and we cross over, we'll go to the astral realm to be with our soul family. And we will basically appear like orbs, is what we will appear like. However, when we have a spirit guide, they will often present themselves as a person, and that's the persona that they choose. Middle-aged female, older male, kind of like a woman in her early 20s, something like that, right? I'm just making stuff up, but you get what I mean. They'll present themselves in a certain persona. Sometimes, though, a spirit guide will want to present themselves as an orb, because that's their true essence. Because what what they don't want you to do is they don't want you to get caught up on how they're presenting themselves, that that's who they are, because it's not. We have lived many past lifetimes. So in my channeling workshops, I take my students through past life regression, where I have them experience past lives purposely, on purpose, so they can also relate to their spirit guides. If I've lived many past lives, is it possible that my spirit guides have also lived many past lives? And the answer is yes. So the question though is, if I get a older elder male and he comes in as my spirit guide, I want to go to this side because actually that's one of my male spirit guides currently right now in this present moment. So he's actually coming in live. So this is all live. I'm live channeling. I teach people how to do this, right? And I live it. I live, breathe, eat, sleep this stuff. I really do. Every day, everywhere I go. I was at one of these like hippie restaurants yesterday, and I was, talking with somebody yesterday, and I was like live channeling right there and there on the spot. Like that's how I live my life. So this male guide, he's coming in right now. He's presenting himself as a kind of a middle-aged to older gentleman, a male. But the question is, why is he presenting himself this way? He can choose to present himself many different ways. He, like me, has lived many past lifetimes. So why is he choosing this persona? He's not doing it by accident. He's doing it on purpose, because that's the way that he's here to help and serve me the most. So in this case, he's my relationship guide. He's like in this past life that him and I had together, I was a good friend of his, and he was married for a very long time, and he had like a big community with him in that past lifetime. So he's here to help me and mentor me with relationships, intimate relationships, with friendships, with clients and students, and on and on and on, associates, all that stuff. So that's why he's presenting himself, because he wants me to tap into his wisdom and tap into his calmness within the relationships, and the making sure that you help the people that you're working with to feel important, or even your friends, like everybody. I connect with. I don't just connect with on an intellectual level. I connect with on a soul level. Like, wow, like you're the most important soul that I've ever met. And I look past the facade of who their container is, whether they're male, female, their age, how they look, all that stuff. If they're skinny or heavy set, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. What I do is I look past all that, and all I see is this beautiful, amazing soul right in front of me, doing the best they can. And I connect with their soul, and I just build that relationship. And why do I do this? I do this very intentionally. Why? Because at the end of our life, we don't take this material stuff and all this different stuff that we have and acquire. We don't take this with us into our afterlife and into next lifetimes. But what do we take with us? It's those soul connections. So this is a little tip. Next time you're out there, next time you meet with someone, whether it's one-on-one or in a group, is connect with the person's soul. Try it. Connect with them. Like, look down into that region and just feel into them as a person, and really just take that moment to delve into who they are as a soul, and realize like look past the how they were raised, and their different beliefs and all their dogmas and all that other stuff, the stuff they're going through, and whatever, they're good, they're bad, they're ugly, and just look at their soul and feel into their soul and build that connection. And this, my spirit guide right now, my male, is like really encouraging me to do this, and honor me for doing this on a regular basis, and modeling this for my students and for other people out there, like even just the public and all that. So Mark has a question, is, what is your take on the common feeling that there is a big change in the air for humanity and Gaia? What will the whole planet ascend soon? Okay, so great question. Is there a change in the air? The answer is absolutely yes. Is there stuff going on in the world? Yes. If you're watching this in 5 years from now, the answer is still going to be yes. If you watched this 5 years ago, the answer would still be yes. There's always going to be stuff going on in the world. I remember watching a presentation by the Dalai Lama, and he was talking. He was at a big conference in New York, and someone asked him, "Is the world a better place or not?" And he referred to Queen Elizabeth. He was at her birthday party. I can't remember which one, like 80th or 90th or something like that. But he was at her birthday party, and he asked her that question. He said, Is the world a better place? And her answer was by far yes. He said to the Dalai, or she said to the Dalai Lama, she said, the Queen Elizabeth said to him, when I was growing up back in the early 1920, whatever it was, like in the early 19, the 20th century, earlier 20th century, there was nothing like we had. Like we were so much more barbaric in just one lifetime. We have changed so much. And now we have things like equal rights, way more than we ever have in the history of the world. And for the most part, there's no slavery or very little slavery, again, in comparison to how it used to be. It used to be open and used to be like all that stuff. And then there's things like support systems in place. There's things like people call people out for discrimination or racism, things like that. Like that's not tolerated anymore. Sexism, all that stuff. She said, like, women weren't even allowed to vote, and black people or people of color weren't even allowed to vote, like just a very short period of time ago. Like it wasn't that long ago, in a relatively short period ago. And she said that in a very, 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 very short period of time, in just one lifetime, look how much we've changed as a society compared to the tens of thousands of years before that, where we've changed very little. And look at just one lifetime. She said the world is becoming a much, much, much better enlightened place than it used to be just in a few short, like in less than 100 years. And I remember hearing him say that, and I was just like, wow, like that gives some perspective. And it's so true, in just one lifetime. So do we still have more work to go? The answer is yes. Do we have a long way as a civilization to go? Yes. Can we always improve? Yes. Have we come a long way? Yes. Is there still things going on in the world that are horrific and all that? Yes, I agree. Do we need to solve world poverty? Yes. All those things, yes, 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 yes. I fully agree with. However, we have come a long way as a society. I want people to know that. Something really simple, really basic. When I first started channeling 20 years ago, there was hardly any yoga studios out there. There were, but now they're prevalent everywhere. People are going to yoga studios, going to meditation groups, doing these things that they never used to 20 years ago when I first started this. I never had anyone to teach me how to channel. People didn't talk about channeling. Like this was like taboo. Oh, don't you? That's like blasphemy. Don't you dare talk about this. Now people talk about all sorts of spiritual stuff. Now it's open. There's thousands, if not millions, of books written about these topics. It's all over the internet. It's a good thing. So Mark's question is, will the planet ascend soon? Guess what, Mark? And for all of you listening, we are already in the ascension process. And we have been for quite a while now. So some people, and I used to think this too, is the new earth, this whole new earth concept. I used to think that, oh, here we are, we're in the old earth. And then we're just all of a sudden one day it's gonna switch and we're gonna go into the new earth. It's gonna be like this way one day, and then the next day it's gonna be the new earth. No, no, no. It's an ascension process. We are already in the transition period of the new earth. And this is exciting. This is a good thing. Get excited about it. Why do you think I do what I do? So there's a lot of people who are like all doom and gloom, or this is the end of the world. And you know how many end of the worlds I've survived? I mean, maybe it will happen, but I'm not going to live in fear. I'm really not. And I have this theory. Maybe I'm totally naive about this, but that's why I love Star Trek, because I remember watching Star Trek as a kid, and it's the year 22, 30, whatever it is, right? A few hundred years or 25, 3, 4, 500 years from now, and I'm watching this, and I'm like, we're out in space, and we're exploring these things and that things, and you know what? We overcame the big problems as a society, as a human species. We overcame them, and yeah, we still had our battles and all that, but we moved on from that, and we survived that, and we become more than that as a society. And still to this day, I do believe we can and we will overcome our struggles and the things that we're struggling with now as a society and as a species, that we will overcome this. And this is why I do what I do. And we need more people like you. So if you're listening, please, this is an inspirational message to you. Just focus on the positive in the world. Focus on the good. There's so much love out there. There's so much good happening in the world. There's so much philanthropy, so many people doing wonderful things. Bring light to the world. Be a light worker. Work in the light. bring positivity to the world, not fear, right? Like what I said earlier, don't live in fear with spirituality, with channeling. Try to bring light. That doesn't mean we're naive. That doesn't mean we stick our heads in the sand and pretend this stuff doesn't exist. But by us focusing on the negative, we're propagating more of that. By us focusing on the light, we're propagating the light. Focus on what's good about spirituality. Focus on what's good about the world. Focus on building community, supporting people that are going through struggles, being healers. I teach people how to be healers in my more later channeling workshops. You can go to my website and you can find out about those workshops, and start at channeling level 1, so you can get yourself up to that really high advanced form of channeling, and then you could check what's really going on in the world. Like there's a lot of good that's happening in the world, and we are in the ascension process. And I don't know about you, but I want to be a part of this. This is why I do what I do. This is why I've trained thousands of people around the world how to channel, because that improves their life. That makes a better life for them. And then those people can then do what they're really meant to do and touch the people that I may not get to. And that's how we make the world a better place. So thank you, Mark, for your question. This is a wonderful question, something that's really dear to my heart. I want to see the world really become even a better place than even when Queen Elizabeth II was born in the early 20th century. Let's keep the progress going, because we are making a lot of progress. And, you know, if you can, start up some spiritual groups, whatever that might look like. If you can, if you can't start up any spiritual group, join some, support some, whether it's online or in person. Take one of my channeling workshops and then join the community that I've developed over the 20 years. Yeah, like there's lots of things that you can do. And maybe some of the things that you're meant to do is just be an awesome member, productive member of the society, and raise healthy children or grandchildren, or inspire those around you, like your family. Like there's a lot of ways that we can really make the world a better place. Okay. Um, so Morgan is signing in from British Columbia. Welcome, Morgan. Great to see you. Morgan wants to know, what is the key to being an advanced channeler? Wow, that's a loaded question. Thank you very much, Morgan. So one is not to blindly just believe anything that you hear or are taught. So many people in the spirituality industry make stuff up or come up with these good theories, but that doesn't necessarily make them true. Just because it sounds reasonable or logical, actually, those are some of the most dangerous ones. So, how do you become an advanced channeler? One is make sure that you do your healing and clearing. Do your healing and clearing, okay? Because if you if your container is contaminated or tainted, then what's going to happen is you're going to get tainted information. The information might come in pure from your spirit guides or loved ones or whoever it is you're channeling. But if your container is not clean and clear, then it's going to get distorted. I know what it's like. I've been there. Your healing and clearing is a lifelong journey. When I began this 20 years ago, I thought I was getting these kind of messages and those kind of messages and these kind of messages, those kind of messages. But because I had a lot of healing and clearing to do back then, I was actually distorting the answers and spewing out to others like it was like facts. And then I went through, as I went through my healing and clearing and started to check some of my things I thought I was channeling from earlier in my early years, I realized, oh, wait, actually, that wasn't correct. I was actually influencing the answer. So becoming an advanced channeler, the very, very, very basics and fundamental is starting to build your skill set. Build the skills, the hard skills, by taking formal channeling. You could try it on your own. It's fine if you want to. I'm not against it. I do recommend formal certification training, though, so you're actually taught how to channel properly and then at advanced levels so that you can do it healthy. But while you're learning to channel, do your healing and clearing so you're not influencing the answer, so you're not tainting the answer, you're not getting yourself in the way, you're not making stuff up that you think you're getting when you're not. I come across so many people that they're like, oh, this is what I'm getting, this is what I'm getting. And I'm checking, I'm like, no, you're not. If it's somebody who's just a friend or just somebody that I bump into and they think they're getting something, I don't correct them. but with students, because that's why they come to me, then I will when appropriate, and I'll teach them. I'll go, okay, let me help you and teach you how you really know what you're getting and how to discern the difference between what you're making up, your own psyche, your own mind, and what's actually truly coming from your spirit guides or whoever it is you're channeling. It takes a little bit of humility, actually a lot of humility. Some of my best learning was from people who called me on my stuff, and it's like, Ken, that's not true. I'm like, yeah, it is. Ken, that's not true. I'm like, yeah, it is. And then they're like, Ken, you're a channeler. Check. I'm like, no, I don't need to check. I know it's right. I was so like determined to know that what someone taught me was correct and what was right. And then yeah, and then I checked, and I'm like, dang it. And at that moment, I realized I had to check everything that I've ever thought was true with channeling, and properly getting myself out of the way, and then making sure that I'm not influencing the answer. And you'd be surprised. A lot of the stuff that I thought was accurate wasn't accurate at all. So it takes a lot of humility to know that. But take formal training. And it's also very helpful to have a mentor who can help you. And then another thing that's really important to do advanced channeling is making sure that you're constantly getting your spiritual upgrades along the way. So I do include spiritual upgrades along with the healing. Every single one-on-one session, every single group session, whether it's the Ascension Group Healing, whether it's my channeling training workshops, whether it's live or in person, always, always, always includes two things: healing and clearing, and spiritual upgrades, because you need the spiritual upgrades to upgrade your infrastructure. Your grounding might need upgrading. Your transmitter receiver junction box might need upgrading. Your etheric self, your chakras, your auric field, all that stuff might need upgrades along the way. And with channeling, if you know what you're doing, you know who you're working with, you can do it properly, safely, and in a way that's going to help support the person with their ascension process, which will help them with their channeling abilities to be able to do way more advanced channeling because they have the infrastructure in place. So the analogy that I like to use is like a car. So if you have a little dinky, Fiat or something like that, or something like that, and you try to put a Lamborghini components in there, it's going to blow the rest of if you put a Lamborghini engine in there, it'll blow the rest of the components, like the transmission and the suspension, everything else would just basically explode. So what you need to do is that along the way, along your journey, you're getting the spiritual upgrades. You're upgrading the components. You're taking, oh, now we've upgraded this part, so we need to take this other part out, put this other part in, upgrade that, like in the car analogy. Obviously, we don't do that with our spiritual systems. We just upgrade them, which is cool. And each different, so attunements, activation, spiritual upgrades, enhancements, things like that are done differently and appropriate for that person, for where they're at, to help them ascend. And then next time I see them or meet with them, I help them and I give them more spiritual upgrades along the way. Very, very, very important. And on a very practical sense, Morgan, how do I become an advanced channeler? Meditate. Calm your mind, and not just once, on a regular basis. Quiet your mind, because your spirit guides are trying to get messages to you on a regular basis, but our mind is so busy. I know it's not the glamorous answer. It's really not. It's not glamorous. It's not like, oh, but I don't want to do that. I want to do all these. But it works. It works. Sometimes the things that we don't want to do are the things that we need to do. Sometimes I don't feel like exercising it. I'm like, okay, now I know I need to force myself and go to the gym or go for a run. Like I just went for a run today before this call, and sometimes I didn't want to. My stomach was kind of upset, but I forced myself to do it and I felt better afterward. And same thing with like spirituality. There's things that we aren't glamorous, but they work. And sometimes the simple things are the things we need to do. My mentor used to say to me, he used to say, Ken, if everything was complicated, everyone would be doing it. If things are complicated, everyone would be doing it. Because people always think that we need to do the complicated things. But sometimes with spirituality, it's the simple things that we need to do. It's the simple things that work. So ask yourself, so there's two things. One is I teach my students, like, keep things lean. Only do what you need to do, nothing more, nothing less when it comes to spirituality. Because too many times people add this and they add that and they add this and they're doing all these gazillion things, and it's not sustainable long term. Trust me, I've been down that path. It's not like doing 10, 20, 50 things. Some I've seen some people where they need to take an hour to prep to get ready just before they could start channeling. I'm like, what, really? I meet someone at a store or at a restaurant or something like that, and I just start channeling live right then and there on the spot. I don't do any prep. I'm like already connected, because I'm always connected, right? Don't get me wrong. There might be a season of your life where your spirit guides might want you to do a certain thing to kind of get you in that zone, stuff like that. But when that season's done, again, let that go. So live a lean life. This is advanced channeling techniques, by the way, in case you're wondering. I know it seems simple, but it's advanced because a lot of people don't do it because it's simple. If if things were complicated, everyone would be doing it. But because it's simple, no one does it. Meditating, learn to calm your mind. And then if you learn to calm your mind, then you can hear those subtleties from your spirit guides trying to get messages to you. Eat healthy, because your container, if it's healed and clean and clear, it's easier for you to receive messages from your spirit guides. Do the basics, the fundamentals, like stay healthy. Careful what kind of social media you allow into any kind of media at all, like news, things like that, into your psyche. Hang out with positive people that are inspiring, uplifting. People who have a positive outlook on life. Like these are the basics, people. Like just live the basics, the simple stuff with spirituality. Every once in a while, go have some fun. Like, go to a crazy dance where you can let your hair down and dance like a wild, crazy person, because joy, there's healing in that. That's actually very spiritual. You might want to do go to some spiritual groups and things like that. I'm a big proponent about taking lots of different kinds of spiritual training, but not just blindly believing what I'm teaching, because I have channeling. I can check what the teacher's teaching in that, but I might learn a few nuggets. That doesn't mean I'm meant to go, or I'm not meant to go, because sometimes I'm meant to go to meet people and hang out with people that are spiritual. So this all helps with the spiritual ascension. Thank you so much, Morgan, for that question. If you are watching and you just tuned in, please say hi. This is the Ask Ken Show. Mention your name, where you're from, and also please check out my website, channelinginc.com, where I have a whole bunch of online spiritual events. Please ask any questions. What do you want to know? Spiritual questions, anything about spirituality, anything about channeling, anything about your spirit guides, loved ones, anything to do with anything spiritual. I'll ask it, or I'll live channel the answers right now. So hey, Heath, welcome for tuning in. Heath is one of my longest students from Australia. I've known him for so long, from Perth, Australia. Thank you so much, Heath, for tuning in. Love this guy. Just an amazing dude. So amazing. So Jason Matthews is asking a question. Is it common for people to have near-death experience and not remember what they've experienced? The answer is yes. That has happened, where people will basically die and then not remember what happened. But it's also common. It also can happen where some people do remember what happened. Near-death experiences is a topic I cover in my channeling level 3 expert level, and I actually teach my students that with the skills that I've taught you now, that you can help what's called NDEers, near-death experiencers, people who've had near-death experiences. You can actually now channel and find out what really happened, what's really going on with them, why their soul chose to return and come back to Earth. It's a very complex subject, and it's very individualized based on each individual person's experience. So it's a very complicated subject and topic that's very vast. So my question to you, Jason, is more, what's the reason you asked this question? Did you have something where you felt like you had an NDE, near-death experience, but you don't remember it? And then with channeling in a one-on-one session or something more private, whether it's with me or one of my students, they could actually tune in and communicate with your soul, your higher self, and your spirit guides, or some of your soul family members, actually, for that matter, and find out why your soul decided to come back and what really happened when you were on the other side. So good question, Jason. Very good question about near-death experiences. If any of you have had any near-death experiences, please mention in the comments below. what your experience was like. If you have any questions as well about that topic, about near-death experiences, it's a little bit of a touchy subject. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's something that I'm a little bit, hesitant about sharing with. But generalities, I'm more than comfortable sharing that in a public setting like the Ask Ken show. But as for specifics, it's a lot more appropriate to do that in a one-on-one setting. Uh, Hi, Bruce. This is Bruce from Ubud. He has completed the channeling level 1 and 2 workshop. So welcome, Bruce. Thank you for tuning in to the Ask Ken show. Woo woo. And this is your opportunity to ask any questions about spirituality. And I think Bruce did have some questions to ask, and I didn't get an opportunity to get back to him. I'm just like, in a good way, really busy living here in Bali and doing some amazing things with a whole bunch of communities, and bringing light and love to the world, like really helping this world become a better place in person and online. So thank you for tuning in, everyone. Let's get to our next question. So the question is, how can I receive messages from my spirit guides? So we talked about the clairs earlier. So again, this goes back to Morgan's question, which is, how can I advance my channeling techniques? So I'll give you some really practical suggestions here. What I suggest I do with my students is, I suggest finding so two things. One is, as you live your life every day, your everyday kind of life, really just tune into your spirit guides. Like, if you notice their presence, stop what you're doing and then find somewhere quiet, sit down and communicate with them. Sometimes they're just hanging out with you, but oftentimes they actually do have a message for you. The other thing that I also recommend for my students is finding some quiet time every day to sit down and actually invite them in and communicate with them. So I'll give an example of what I mean. So again, if you're watching this and you want to take notes, this is a time for you to take notes on this. And if you can't take notes, that's fine. So this is what I do every single day. In the morning when I wake up, I do two things. I focus on my soul and I say to myself and to my soul, I love you. I love you. And I tell myself I love me. I love me, because that, in my opinion, is the number one thing that's going to help me to heal, to be healthier, to just self-love is so, so, so important, because all these things that bother me, if I have so much self-love overflowing, it's just my cup is overflowing with self-love, then these things don't bother me as much anymore. I can be more tolerant of people, more compassionate of other people, more compassionate to myself when I screw up and make mistakes. And I just tell myself I love myself anyways. And then the second thing I do is I connect with my spirit guides. So how do I do this? This is where you can take notes. What you can do is you can spend 5-10 minutes every day. I do recommend more than once a day, but if you just do it once a day, that's fine. At least it's better than nothing. And if you miss a few days here and there, that's fine. Start fresh today or tomorrow, but start fresh and start again. And what I do is I sit quiet, I take a deep breath, and I do three things: ground, center, channeling using source energy. So what is grounding? You ground through your root chakra, you ground through your feet. The roots coming out of your feet, and your root chakra, a cord coming out of your root chakra, going deep, deep, deep down into the center of the earth, wrapping it around the center of the core of the earth, make it nice and taut. That just anchors you down. The more you're grounded, the higher you can fly. Just like a kite, the more the kite is grounded, the higher it can fly. Same thing with spirituality. You want to live a good, solid, grounded life, not all floaty, airy, fairy everywhere. You want to be grounded. The second thing I do is I center myself, gather all my energy from the past, bring it to the present, gather all my energy from the future, bring it to the present. And that allows me to be present, centered, right here, right now. Take a deep breath, center myself. And then the third thing I do is I invite source energy to come in. And I do this because I don't want to become worn out and tired from draining my battery, my chi energy. If I'm channeling using source energy, then it's unlimited energy I'm tapped into. So once I do this, it happens fast, it happens quick. At the beginning, I do recommend my students take it slower. They make sure they do all three properly. They anchor it in, anchor in your grounding, make sure you're centered, make sure you have adequate amount of source energy coming in and flowing through all of your body, like everything. And then what I do is once I'm grounded, centered, channel using source energy, then I try to just relax myself. And then I just feel into where is my spirit guide physically around me. And I want to know where they are physically around me, because what I found with my students is that as they're learning channeling, is that if their mind is just wandering randomly everywhere aimlessly, that they're less likely to get accurate information. You want to know where your spirit guide is physically around you. So think of it like, back when I started learning to channel, they didn't have the technology that they have now. Now they actually have technology that can capture your spirit guides on camera. You might have seen them in those ghost hunters kind of shows and things like that. The technology is still in its infancy, but as it gets better, we'll be able to capture your spirit guides even better on camera. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because what I want you to do is I want you to just psychically feel around you. Where is my spirit guide around me? Where? Oh, right here. Okay, so that's where you lock in on your guide. And if we had the technology that, like the highly sensitive camera system set up in your room, we'd actually be able to capture your spirit guides physically right here on your front side, on this side of you. And so that the other thing that does is also, like, you're not making it up. Your spirit guides are just as real as you and I are, just in non-physical form. And the reason why you want to know where they are physically around you is because now that's where your focal point is. That's where your information, the source of your information, is coming from. So you don't want to be like your mind wandering aimlessly everywhere. That's not where the source is. Where's it coming from? Oh, it's coming from right here. That's where you want to focus. So it's kind of like a candle flame. So it's not a candle flame, but it's like a candle flame in a dark room. Where is that candle flame? Oh, where is it? Oh, it's right here. Where do I want to focus my energy? Where the candle flame is, where the source of the information is. Don't let my mind wander. If I notice my mind wandering, bring it back to the source, to where it's coming from. Your spirit guides can move around. Most of the time, though, they find a spot, they stick to it, but that doesn't mean they stick to it forever. Maybe it's just that moment when you're channeling them that day, but maybe the next day they might be over here. No big deal. Okay, it's the same spirit guide, same energy signature, the same personality traits, same demeanor, all that kind of stuff, right? But let's say in this example, the spirit guide's here. Now, once you know where they are physically around you, you lock in on them. Don't let your mind wander. And then the last thing you do is you increase your connection with them. Just because you know where they are physically around them doesn't mean your connection is solid. So just breathe into them, lean into them, and increase your connection with you and that spirit guide. Then what you do is you allow yourself to start to receive the messages. So the last thing you want to do is try too hard. You don't want to be like, oh, I gotta get this message. Because when you try too hard, it actually constricts those channels. You're trying too hard, you're like, ugh. And then it actually makes the communication channel between you and your spirit guide smaller. But when you relax into it, it actually dilates. It becomes bigger and wider and allows that information to flow even easier. This is, again, one of the mistakes, tip and a trick that took me good like 5 to 10 years to figure out on my own. I was trying so hard and I didn't realize that I was actually making it worse. But when you just relax, lean into your spirit guide, allow them to give you the message, and then receive that message through any one of the different clairs that I mentioned earlier. And then what I ideally would like you to do, so again, this is a very a good thing to practice, is try to practice the clairs individually, and even the weaker clairs, the ones that you struggle with. And the reason why is because you want to become what's called a versatile channeler. So a lot of channelers, a lot of people that want to channel or practice channeling or attempt to channel, what they do is they just only channel one or two of their strongest clairs. And if that's where you're at, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Get what you can with what you got. That's totally fine. However, if you can, ideally try to channel, practice working on your weaker clairs on purpose, because then over time it does two things. One, it allows you to get a more broad-based answers, broad-based messages from your spirit guides, because now you're getting it through receiving many of your different clairs. And the other second reason that you want to do this is because then over time you can learn, oh, this spirit guide is communicating with me through this clair, let's say clairsentient. But because I've become very competent in clairsentient clairs, sensing emotions, things like that, then I can learn how to go even deeper with my spirit guide on this specific clair. And then with this other spirit guide, they might give me another message through clairvoyant, clear seeing. And because they're giving me this images and I've been practiced over the years with my clairvoyance, now I can really hone in and go even deeper with this spirit guide on clairvoyance, on clear images. That's how they're giving me the message. No big deal. I'm not trying to dictate to my spirit guides how I want to receive the message. I'm okay with receiving the message any and every way. Might be clairaudient, might be one of the different clairs, clairalience, clairgustance, things like that. Okay. So really, really practice on purpose, honing your different spiritual clairs. Okay. So good question. Bruce has a question. It is, are you aware of any events that demonstrate spirit guide channeling? I'm consistently mentioning this topic in his memoirs and hesitant without to share any evidence. Um, like I've heard of consultants being psychics being consulted by police, investigations, military, things like that, offering valuable evidence. So there is some of the stuff is classified. It is. I have, for example, there was somebody in one of the Canadian cities, a child who, a 2-year-old child who wandered off from their family when they were camping, and they did a search and rescue like everywhere for this child. They couldn't find this child anywhere. And the day, as you know, if somebody goes missing, especially a young child, every hour counts. And a couple of days have gone by, like 2 days have gone by already, and they're like, if we don't find this child, the child's gonna like die from whatever, or if they're not already. So as a last resort, they did um, consult a psychic, and a psychic found exactly where that child was, and they went and did a search and rescue for this place that they're like, there's no way that there's could be anyone there. And but they, sure enough, they found the child exactly where that psychic had saw them, like psychically in their mind, and they found that child, and it was in a place they would have never thought of looking. And the child was found along the riverbank, way, 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 way down, had wandered down off on this riverbank and was hidden somewhere. And they found the child just in time. The child was just about like dying of starvation from no food or lack of water. And, like stuff like this. And this was just recent. This was like only maybe 2 years ago, something like that. So relatively recent. And these stories happen all the time. So there are stories out there, Bruce, that can prove these psychic abilities. There's also people who do trance channeling, other kind of channeling, things like that. So Bruce has another question regarding my efforts in channeling. I'm watching for the kind of events that have been guiding me in many different instances throughout my life. I'm still hoping to get more clarity, communication, contact. I'll take what I can get. I'm often curious throughout the day as to where my guides are with me and thinking of what hints I may have overlooked. So Ken, this is a great question for the previous question that was asked, how can I become more of an advanced channeler? Very, very good question, Bruce. So thank you. Are you listening to this? This is going to be great for all of you. So what you want to do with your spirit guides is, as you're living your everyday life, is most of us, we live our life like this. Oh, just kind of like with our eyes closed, our third eye closed, all our other chakras closed, all our other psychic abilities closed. And we're just kind of like wandering around aimlessly, focused on this 3D world. This 3D world is a small, itty little bitty tip of the iceberg of what is reality out there. There's so much going on behind the veil. There's so much going on behind the scenes. It's insane. And when you learn to tap into this at higher levels, like it just, all this stuff opens up, and then you could start to see the interweaving of all this stuff that's happening behind the scenes. And when you learn to tap into it and use it to your advantage in a positive way, the amazing serendipities and the synchronicities that can unfold are just phenomenal and miraculous. So one of the keys to doing this advanced channeling is pay attention to those subtleties. So two things is, your spirit guides are constantly trying to get your attention throughout the day. They're trying to show you these things. So there's a really great exercise that I do with my students in channeling level 1 is, how do your spirit guides try to get your attention? It could be signs. It could be like numbers. It could be, dimes or feathers or coins, or it could be all sorts of different things throughout the day. It could be, sometimes your spirit guides will communicate to you through other people. Someone will just give you a message and you'll be like, oh, I'm like, yeah, that actually came from your spirit guide through that person. So that person, whether they knew it or not, gave a spirit guide reading. But I teach my students how to do this intentionally on purpose and give spirit guide readings. We practice this in channeling level 2. It does take practice to see how your spirit guides are maneuvering you throughout the day, and not just the day, but the weeks and the months and all that. But when you practice this and you learn, and so the biggest thing that I want everyone, if you're taking notes, I want you to write this word down. This is the magic word for channeling. The magic word is curiosity. Get curious. Ask these questions like Bruce is asking. How are my spirit guides nudging me? How are they maneuvering things? How are they working things in my favor? How are they doing this? How are they doing that? What do I need to watch for? What am I not watching for? That's a good question. Ooh, write that one down. What am I not watching for? What am I missing? And ask your spirit guides these questions. What am I missing? What are you trying to tell me that I'm not aware of? Ooh, there's another great question. What am I trying to, what am I not aware of? What should I be asking? Like all these questions. Like, so, I was coming back from a city here in Bali, and I was coming back all day. I was there. I was doing some uh, uh, stuff like errands, running some errands. And then on the way back, it was late. It was dark. I was tired. I just wanted to get back. But then I was like really close to where I live, where I'm staying here in Ubud in Bali. It's the center of Bali. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, something told me to turn my head. So I did. I turned my head and I looked, and I saw this restaurant that I've never seen before. And I'm a vegan vegetarian, so I don't eat meat or fish or anything like that. I'm, very strict about that, eating super, super healthy and clean. So I see this place, and it said Warung Green. Warung is a restaurant here in Indonesian. That's what that word means, Warung. And then the word green, like vegetables. I'm like, okay, like green vegetables and produce and things like that. So I'm like, huh. And then I'm like driving for a bit. I'm like, okay, whatever. It's just, but I was, I was hungry or whatever. So I'm like, I need to eat anyways before, and I'm very close to the city that I live in. So I'm like, you know what? My guides showed me that and told me that. So I'm going to turn around. So I did, like right away. Like this happened within microseconds. I'm going to turn around. There's, for some reason, I need to go to that restaurant. I need to go to that restaurant. I don't think it's about the food. I think it's about something else. But I'm going to trust that, and I'm going to go. So I turn around, my bike turn around, and I go into that restaurant. I'm like, oh, okay. There's like one guy sitting there, and he was just, minding his own business. He didn't look like he wanted to talk or anything. So I honored that. I was fine. And I just, went and it was all like super crazy healthy green food. I sat down, and sure enough, within like 2 minutes, this other lady came into the thing, and I had to grab. So stood up, and I went and grabbed something else from the front, and then her and I started chatting, and then I said, oh, hey, did you want to join me? Because there's no one else. So she sat down, she joined me, this young lady or whatever, and she was visiting Bali. And I told her, and we started talking about, she's like, so what do you do? And I'm like, I teach channeling. She's like, oh my God, she's just lit up. She's like, I've always wanted to learn that. That's so cool. Like, I just started hearing about this just like this last week. And now you sit down, and like, we sit down together and we're talking, like, I can't believe this. And then I told her how I got nudged to turn around my bike and my scooter, and then come back and come to this restaurant. And she's like, me too. I was actually going to another place, and then I saw this place. And then so I turned around and came back too. I'm like, oh, see, imagine that. I'm tuning in. I'm like, of course. And it was her spirit guides that told, were guiding her to come around so that we could meet. Like things like this happen on a regular daily basis for me. But what am I doing? I'm getting curious. Why was I, why was I like, oh, look over there? Oh, it was for a reason. Sometimes it doesn't mean you have to turn around always every time, you see something like that. But you're like, sometimes they're bringing the stuff to your awareness for a reason. Sometimes it's just, you're like noticing things. But no, with channeling, you could check if it's just you or if it's actually coming from your spirit guides. In this case, it was coming from my spirit guides. So what did I do? I listened to them. And then that's when the magic happened. That's when the miracle happened. That's when I met this young lady. She's interested in taking my channeling workshops. She might come to my classes, things like that. Like, so cool, so fun. And this is the way that I live my life, like all the time. Could you imagine how this can open up so many doors to like, if you really start to apply these channeling techniques on your regular daily basis? Does it take practice? Yes. There's been times when I've been nudged to do this or do that, and I don't do it. And then I miss that. Or, I really want to do something, and then my guides are like, don't do it. But I do it anyways, and then it turns out horribly. Yeah, like that happens to me, even still to this day, a lot less because I listen to my spirit guides. I want to listen to my spirit guides 100% of the time to the best of my ability. And I try to. It takes a lot of humility. It takes a lot of like healing and clearing, getting healthier, things like that. So really, really, really good question. And just have fun with it. Like, you notice how I'm like smiling and I'm like, whoa, like a child in a candy store, in a playground. Like I'm just having fun because it is a playground. It is fun. Spirituality is meant to be fun. So try to keep it light. And if you screw up, mess up, you don't listen to your guides, you do something that you shouldn't or whatever, and your spirit guides were telling you not to, but you do it anyways and it turns out horribly, just be gentle with yourself. Go back to the self-love that I talked about at the beginning of the Ask Ken show where, okay, Ken, I love you anyways. I love you through it. You did something silly or whatever. That's okay. Just love yourself through it and be gentle with yourself as you go through this journey. So I'm gonna do one more question and then Kim, welcome Kim, tuning in all the way from Buffalo, New York, in the United States. Thank you so much for tuning in, Kim and I don't know how long it's been, probably close to 10 years now that we've known each other. So it's always wonderful to have you here on the Ask Ken show. Kim Buxenwoski, I hope that's how you say your last name. So her grandma passed, just went through. Someone told me she wanted to let me know that I love her. Sorry to hear about your grandmother, Kim. So in one-on-one sessions, I would go more through like specific messages she has for you and all that stuff. I do teach people how to do loved ones like readings and loved one messages in my channeling level 2 workshop. So if you haven't been to my website, please check out my channelinginc.com website. That's where you'll see all my formal training. The real one to start with is the channeling level 1. That's where the real certification is. That's where you'll get the formal training. That's the prerequisite for the levels 2, and then levels 2 is a prerequisite for level 3, and then so on to my more advanced channeling techniques. And then after that, I have a whole bunch of other programs like my 6-month strategic channeling program, my master channeling mastermind classes. That's the really, really, really advanced training. Super, super cool stuff. And I also record those so people can have access to them afterward. So if anyone has any questions for future Ask Ken shows, you can message them to me. You can put them in the comments and I will add them to my list and watch your question being asked on the Ask Ken show. Like, how cool is that? I do this the fourth Wednesday of every month in European and Mountain times. I also do this, it would be the fourth Thursday of the month if you are in Asia or anywhere else like that part of the world. And I also do Ascension Group Healings on the second Wednesday for the Europeans, and North Americans is the Americas is the Ascension Group Healing. You know what the Ascension Group Healing is? It's where I have access to over 100 different healings. And in that Ascension Group Healing, I will live channel what that group needs healed the most. And I would just heal and heal and heal and heal and heal past life stuff, timeline healing, um, traumas, childhood traumas, ancestral healing. I could just go on and on and on, all these different healings. And I also give spiritual upgrades and activations, attunements, all that kind of good stuff, spiritual enhancements, like all sorts of cool stuff during that 1 hour. So that is on the second Wednesday or second Thursday of every month, depending on what time zone you're in. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to message me. And also, please feel free to visit my website, channelinginc.com. My name is Ken Lewicki. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you soon.